Um, I would like to call this meeting to order and recognize that we are gathering on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, and we are grateful for their stewardship of these lands since time immemorial. Can I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. And adoption of the minutes. Regular council April 11th and committee of the whole April 17th.
Move the minutes.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And delegations. Menstrual equity. Carissa and Rebecca, come on up. You're both welcome to come up. You may sit or stand, whatever you're comfortable with. Just make sure you're talking to a mic.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi. So we're here to talk to you about menstrual equity.
Yeah.
So that refers to the accessibility, affordability, and safety of menstrual products. So not all people who menstruate are female, so that's why we use the word menstrual products. And then traditionally we've heard things like hygiene products, but that suggests that this normal biological function is dirty and further stigmatizes the process of menstruation. So we're not going to use those terms here. So according to Free the Tampon in 2013, 86% of people who menstruate have reported experiencing an unexpected period start in public without the supplies they need. So we're a pretty easy community to do this work with. So I put in our stats. We've got over 4,000 people here, with about half of our population being menstruators. Only about 80% of those folks menstruate, so that shows us that about 1,600 of our community members experience a regular menstrual cycle. So if 86% of those experience an unplanned period start in public, that's just about 1,400 people experiencing their day being disrupted and concerned about how they might manage their day without the resources they need. So toilet paper wasn't always in our bathrooms. We used to carry it around. It was in a book, like in the bottom there. That's from 1960. That's not that long ago. If you forgot your toilet paper at home, you were having kind of a rougher day. And you were having that, like, you know, subtle conversation with the person next to you, like, hey, can you hook me up with a few pages? Like, but that's what's happening for menstruators. So the United Way from Lower Mainland has done a pile of work in this area and a pile of research, and we included the full research document in the agenda package. They researched 10 communities from around the province, a pretty good snapshot of different community sizes and regions. This report, I'm going to go through quite a few stats, but I'm going to gloss over the ones that are the most important, but this report is quite stat heavy, so I do invite you to read it if you're kind of a data nerd. The families that report annual household income of less than $40,000 per year, folks that are self-reported as Indigenous, and people with physical and mental disabilities are the most profoundly impacted by lack of menstrual products. This is the main graph, but it's too much for y'all to read, so we're going to do it like this. So 51% of respondents indicated they had struggled to purchase menstrual products for themselves. So half of everybody. 64% of the respondents reported with an annual income of less than $40,000 had struggled to purchase menstrual products for themselves. So we see that jump quite a bit. And then again, for Indigenous folks, we see 68% of respondents have struggled. And then folks that are living with a physical or mental disability are 79%. And approximately 26% of the respondents have indicated they went through an entire period without any menstrual products. Yeah. So menstrual stigma is a significant factor in what contributes to the individual's likelihood that they can feel like they can ask for help when a period starts unplanned. And you can see that strongly agree is the largest category there, and so lots of menstruators do face that stigma. This is the important one here. The one on the left is where we started our work. So the purpley one on the left side there is students who have left their education once their period has started unplanned throughout their day. And I'm going to highlight a little bit later on what work we've done at North Island College campuses to help that. And then the two columns on the right there are the ones that impact our community here. So community events and social events. So the more red column is people who have missed those opportunities. They stayed home, they didn't come out, they didn't leave because they were menstruating and maybe didn't have the appropriate supplies. And then folks that are leaving early because of that unplanned period start. And that's a significant amount of people that are leaving events. I know with our big event coming up this year. Like, we want to engage and make sure everybody's coming out to all the amazing things in our community. So, like I said, what we do at North Island Students Union, we started in 2018 with a pilot project of providing menstrual products in 3 bathrooms on our Courtney campus. And then we've moved on to provide products in 3 bathrooms in every building of NIC's 4 campuses. And it's taken those few years to build that momentum and get the institution to join us. When we first started, the Students' Union was paying the cost 100%. Then we got them on board for 50%. And just this spring, they're now doing 100% of all the payment for the products, which is fantastic. We have, like I mentioned on the earlier slides, not all menstruators identify as female. So right out of the gate, we've done this work in 1 female-identified washroom, 1 gender-neutral washroom, and 1 male-identified washroom, so that folks don't need to out themselves when they need to access products. Most recently, we've been able to team up with a provider here in BC. They're actually on Vancouver Island. They're out of Saanich. They produce organic, low-waste products, and they also have a bulk purchasing program. We were only able to find these products in the States previously, so we're paying US dollar and dealing with borders and customs and things. Surprising amount of people had comments about about tampons at the border. It was awesome, but you know, we did our most recent order with Joni, and products have arrived 4 days later, and supporting BC business is obviously something we like to do. They also have a much smaller ecological footprint than mainstream brands, and organic products are just better for menstruators. Traditional bleach products are just that, they're bleached. They carry a lot of dioxins, and the process of making those products comes with a huge cost, as well as for the user. So in 2019, the Ministry of Education mandated that these products are available in the K-12 sector. So we're seeing students expect these products in spaces now, right? They've grown up expecting to find those supplies when they need them. It's a really great quote here from the then Minister of Education, Rob Fleming. He's saying it's common sense and long overdue, and that was in 2019, just that we need to reduce barriers and reduce stigma. So how does community show up for its members? So we're suggesting that this move aligns with the ultimate goal of decreasing barriers to accessible, equitable community engagement in our province and in our communities. Having the continuity of being able to rely on products being there and available when you need them will foster a sense of confidence and security that the municipality shows up for its members and values engagement with and contributions from the community. So Period Promise was a couple of slides earlier. That's the big work of the United Way of Lower Mainland. So they do ask organizations such as cities of Victoria and North Vancouver to sign on as Period Promise signatories, and it just helps to echo the work. This is much of the same, that we're asking you to empower our residents to participate in community longer and more often. This aligns with our community health area of one of our 4 focused areas of our strategic plan. So our ultimate ask here is that Council will ask staff to produce a report about the impacts and costs of providing free menstrual products in our village-operated facilities, like the CRI, the bathrooms down at the village park, all these spaces that are open door. And that we'd also ask that you join the Period Promise campaign and support the work of the United Way of Lower Mainland. And then we're great students, so there's all of our resources.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, any questions?
Questions?
I have a question. So the Period Promise, is there, so there's the financial commitment to municipally wide provide these products. Is there more to it than that? Is there an education component that goes along with being a signatory to that?
A part of it too is that the products are available to all staff of the Village of Cumberland as well, so
Okay.
that would be in staff bathrooms and things too, so that there's equitable access for all.
Okay. And then the education piece is we're just supporting the organization in further educating public.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the largest ask,
Yeah.
is just to keep that work growing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
The non-menstruator, 86% of people having a panic when they're having an emergency is a big number. And yeah, it's a lot of really great information, and I fully support you guys, so thanks for coming.
I just, as also a non-menstruator, I had erroneously assumed that this was widespread as it was, but I apparently not. So thank you for bringing this to my attention as someone who's going to have to deal with this with his daughter in probably 10 years. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. I just have a question before you go. So, does Joni also provide the dispensers and stuff, or you, okay?
Yeah, they do have great dispensers. They've got ones that are timed too, so that the product drops every 30 seconds. Or there's the open top one like you saw there. Yeah,
Yeah.
they've got quite a few options.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for
Yeah, you bet.
this.
Thank you.
Okay, somebody needs to move the receipt of that, please, and,
Yeah,
anyway,
I'll move
there's-
receipt.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, yeah, yeah, that. Okay, and Cumberland Victoria Day celebrations and Cumberland Event Society delegation. I don't need to talk this fast anymore because we're at the beginning of this meeting, not the end of the last one. Hi, Marianne. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you. So, my name's Marianne Bell. I guess I'm supposed to introduce myself for the thing, right?
Right. None of us have ever seen you before.
And I'm here from the Cumberland Event Society. I watched the council meeting from this afternoon, so I know what was said.
Nice.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not asking for anything tonight. I'm just sort of following up, and I can answer a couple of the things actually that were talked about this afternoon. But
Sweet.
I just wanted, because it's a new council, it's been several years since we've really opened up. Last year it was only partial, and for 2 years before that, of course, we only had our funky little drive-by parade that Fox and Bee made look really cool, which, you know,
It was
kudos
pretty
for them.
cool.
It was pretty cool.
Thank
yeah.
you for that.
Fun was had.
Yeah.
So I was just going to give you a little bit of history and a little bit about the society and a little bit about this year's celebrations, and that's it. So, and it'll also help, I think, with the people in town, because like last year there was so many people didn't even know we did a parade. We had a little bit of a parking nightmare at 7 o'clock in the morning, so hopefully this will help with that as well. Get off the street. Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
So some history. We take the liberty to say that the celebrations, the Victoria Day celebrations, it was then called the Queen's Birthday celebrations because Queen Victoria was still alive, started in 1888. And we say the miners, their first year here, that came in 1888, probably raised their glass in support of the Queen, because most of them, there was about 70 English stock miners from Nanaimo and 150 Chinese workers that came up. So we figured the white population for sure raised their glass in 1888. However, the earliest newspaper account I could find, or that I've seen anywhere, it was from 1891 from the Nanaimo Free Press that described the Queen's birthday celebrations out at Comox Lake. Included a ladies' boat race, which apparently was very one-sided because the one partner in one boat didn't know how to row, so Cumberland won, or Union at that point won. It also included, they built a pavilion out there. They hung lights, electric lights through the trees, and they had a dance to the Roy Brothers of Royston and to the Italian band in 1891. So the collieries also put on free trains to the lake, or into the celebrations every year when this was happening up from Union Bay and through Courtney and stuff too, to bring people up. In 1893, there was 2 celebrations, and it kind of happened a couple times where some things actually moved to Courtney, but happened up here as well, which was a bit odd. But in 1893, there was a grand concert here in Union, and it was held with special entertainment by the Union String Band, who apparently could play better than they could the year before, so it was much better. I love the quotes in the paper. The Roy Brothers played again, and they had a Mrs. Collins give a recitation as a May Queen. This is in 1893, so it goes quite a way back. Didn't sound like there was a May Queen like that every year, but we have that. Sports days were held in 1893, though, at the Lewis Farm in Courtney, which is now Lewis Park, of course. And they ended with a pleasant dance with music by the Roy Brothers as well. Those Roy Brothers were very popular.
very busy.
Apparently they were good musicians. As Union and Cumberland grew, Victoria Day became a part of this community. It was the biggest community. It was the only organized community at that point in the valley as well. So, and every year some kind of celebration since then have taken place. I think that's since like 1893 or 91 in Cumberland. In 1896, it was a bicycle race that was the principal attraction, including a 2-mile bicycle race for novices. That would have been fun to watch. So sports were always a really big thing in the program, as they still are today. There was soccer, baseball, lacrosse, quoits, racing contests of all sorts, foot races, a bun and treacle contest, cracker eating contests, throwing the hammer and Highland dancing. It all happened. In 1909, there was a marathon race. In 1912 was a really big year, and they ran about 6 trains to the lake, by the sounds of it, because there was a motorboat race for the first time. They had motorboat races on the lake. That was a really big attraction in 1912. In 1913, the Japanese community provided a pyrotechnics display after dark that was really welcomed, and which I found quite interesting that was one year, because most of the time, the only time the Japanese and Chinese community are mentioned was when they had their special races, other than this that I found. Yeah. The parade history that I found goes back to about 1906. So when there was a procession of children that gathered at was City Hall, which I think was actually down the street here, not at this end, it was down closer to 3rd Street. And they marched down camp and back again. And this was followed by, again, lots of sports and races, but also hose races by the fire department. So for several years they were doing those. In 1916, the headline in the paper was it was the best parade ever held in the city. So it's been a long time since they've had parades as well. In 1919, the Maypole Dance and the Student May Queen were introduced as part of the program. The honors for the May Queen were shared by Union Band Cumberland schools, except for 3 years when they were from Bevan. Today, of course, the May Queen party comes from Cumberland, and the Maypole is still danced by the school children. It was part of the school program. Grade 2s used to learn it every year. My daughter did, my sisters did. But now it's a volunteer thing, and they do it after school, but I think they've got almost 30 kids signed up this year, so we should have full Maypoles this year. Be lots of fun. The organizing of the event, now this is one thing that Ryan said today that was partly council, partly community in the past, and it's always been mixed. It was never run by one or the other that I could find. I did probably tell him at one point I thought it had been run just from council, but it was always mixed from the start. It seemed to be, of course, because there was no council in the start of the city, there was, it mostly was the downtown businessmen that organized it. Council, of course, participated when they became a council in 1898, and we actually still have council participation because we have 2 people on council here that are involved in organizing stuff for Victoria Day. Sean and Neil are on organizing music and the Soapbox Derby for us. So it's still integrated, not and is. It's a funny
in an
place
organic
sometimes.
way, as you heard earlier today.
In 2008, this ad hoc committee was formed by the urging, my understanding is from the urging of several people on both sides from the village and in the society, to organize mostly in support of fundraising. It's really hard to raise money when you just got your hand out and say, who are you, and you don't really represent anyone. So it was decided that the society would be formed, and that's what it morphed into then. It's also for insurance purposes. Somebody had to hold an insurance on the event, so to indemnify the directors and the event as well. Today, the Cumberland Event Society supports the following organizations by providing insurance coverage. So we provide insurance for our events, which include the Soapbox Derby, the Heritage Fair and Lantern Parade, and the Sky Lantern releases. When we have done them, we're hoping those are going to be coming back as well. The Christmas Truck Light Parade, the Cumberland Fire Rescue Society, and for selective events for the Culture and Arts Society. We also provide support for activities in the village and the rest of the valley by providing our tables, VisiVests, and other miscellaneous items we might have. to other community groups and organizations. And we don't charge for those. It's part of our mandate is to be able to support the other organizations. The society, in part of, as we're fundraising as well, we have also had a legacy fund that we have. And in the past, we have provided such equipment and helped to provide and have provided funds to help buy equipment such as the ice machine, the freezers, and the stage that are in the hall. And we currently have a small legacy fund for a trophy cabinet, but right now there's just nowhere to put it, and we'll when and if the time comes, we've had that discussion a couple of times with the hall and stuff, but there's nowhere to do that at this point. But we do have that legacy fund when the time comes. As I said, this was just really short to let you know a little bit more about us, because I know this year especially there's been some confusion, and not having done anything for a few years that people had forgotten anything even happened. So this year our theme is Cumberland, from coal to cool. I like that one, eh? We have all our usual events, I think, as well as a few new ones. This year, our fashion show will take feature a stroll through history with fashions from 1888 to present time. The popular soapbox derby is returning, our Legends of the Maypole, and if you haven't, I'm told, I never danced the Maypole when I was a kid because I was from Royston. No, we didn't do Maypole. I'm told that even if you didn't dance the Maypole, you can come out with the legends of the Maypole and try and dance it. The legends are the adults who danced it when they were kids, and they come back and try and still do it. So it's a lot. It's a lot of fun to watch. We have our old timer soccer game and the doggy fashion show. And our live music in the beer garden again. And we have the appropriate family liquor license all weekend, so that it's not just adults and you don't have to leave your baby in the swing on the playground while you go. This year we're having a family dance as well on the Saturday evening from 6:30 to 9 or 6:30 to 8:30 down at the park. Have all lots of stuff set up for the kids, and we'll have a section off for the beer as well. We will also have new this year night sky viewing, and I think it's called the Astrological Society. I know I'm gonna in Courtenay, and they're going to come up with telescopes and stuff on the Sunday evening after dark. Bring your lawn chair, your binoculars, or your telescope, and they'll be around to tell you what you're looking at in the night sky. So hopefully clear skies. And as well, of course, we have the annual parade, the crowning of the May Queen, activities in the park, all other park of the weekend, as Ryan and Kevin were saying earlier. There's the kids' races in the park, and they are run by the village. And we're having we advertised it as the Piper's Crawl on Dunsmuir Avenue. So once they're done in the park, after the May Queen is crowned, and people follow them to the Legion, to the brewery, to the Wave, I guess. That's usually where they end up anyway, where we all have to pay the piper. And just from this afternoon, just a couple of questions. One, I know that someone asked about the garbage and recycling. For the last few times, we have hired someone down in the park to do they separate the recycling from the garbage, so that the money recyclables.
Oh, okay.
All of the, I'm not sure about the food recyclables because we don't have tons of food vendors, although I know there's a lot of garbage on the Monday. But they usually bring their own garbage cans, so I'm not sure that we've actually addressed that, but I know that there was the conversation here about it being a bigger issue with all groups as well. So
Yeah.
We'll keep that in mind. I'm not sure what we'll get in place for this year, but it's something we'll put on the agenda. The other one was disability access. So I think it was in 2018, and of course we haven't done this for a couple of years, so people don't know. But we close off on the Monday. We close off between 6th and 7th for disability parking only. right? So they get to park right down there in between 6th and 7th, and they can watch the parade right from the end at 6th Street there and be right accessible. So we've done that we have the signage and stuff, and we've done it for a few years. Like I say, we haven't done anything for a few years, and people forgot, but we're getting that back again. And the program will be in the Currently Cumberland and in the Comox Valley Record. So they'll all be out there for hopefully everybody to see, and we hope everybody will come
Awesome.
and enjoy themselves.
Yeah, and let's promote that accessible parking thing. I had no idea that was a thing.
It's we haven't really been able to get out the advertising on it
Yeah.
much, and last year was a bit of a schmozzle with the whole thing.
for sure.
Because
Yeah.
people didn't really understand what was going on. Even, to tell you the truth, some of our volunteers, because nobody,
Yeah.
again, we were rusty.
Yeah.
And we're getting old.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of people I know there's a lot of people that moved here in the last couple of years when we didn't have it that really had no idea, and everybody was
idea
like,
what's going on.
"Whoa, what is happening this weekend?"
Yeah. Why
So-
can't I get to the lake?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for
The
getting
only
some word
thing
out.
we've ever let through the lines when we're doing the parade was the ambulance one time. When he came the wrong way with his lights on, we knew something was wrong.
Yeah. Clear the street.
Yeah. I do have to say though, because I made that little comment there about the committee and us and getting old, but we actually have a lot of more people on the committee this year. It has grown, and a lot of them are 20 years or 30 years younger than me. So
Nice.
it's looking good for having the next crop of Cumberland people take over the committee and keep it running and keep
Yeah.
the event going. So
Yeah. Thank you. It's important that knowledge gets transferred to.
yeah, that's definitely what I've been trying to do for the last few
Yeah.
years is catalog everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I have a short handout. It's just stuff from a brochure that we had done, so it doesn't say a whole lot. But just so you have just a little basic background
Okay.
thing.
Can you take questions if we have
Sure,
any?
if you.
Anybody have questions or comments?
I have a couple. You mentioned one of the sports, quoits.
Quoits.
What is that?
Oh, I never
I've
looked
not-
it up actually.
I've never heard that word.
I feel like we should do quoits this
Yeah,
year
we should
just
do
to see what
quoits.
it is.
I'm sorry. I looked up the
Whatever it is.
bun and treacle contest,
What's that?
but
What's a treacle?
bun and treacle.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you tie your hands behind your back and you get down on your knees and you have to eat a bun covered in treacle with your hands tied behind your back.
Count me in.
For the laypersons, what is
Thanks.
treacle?
Yeah.
We do quoits. It's very similar to washu.
Oh,
Yeah, that I thought it was
Oh.
like, but with a more of a like a dart thing. I think it is. It's kind of like lawn darts. It was probably banned 100 years ago.
I don't think you said it, but what year was the Event Society formed officially?
Well, the Event Society itself was formed in 2008.
Oh, okay, but the original
But
year
the 1891 was the first newspaper account of an event here, so it would have taken organizing committee. And that was always people in town. And of course, at that time, there wasn't a council, but it was mostly, when you see the names, it's most of the businessmen leaders in town that organized it, or through the churches. The Girl Guide leaders, after 1916, when they formed the Girl Guides here, they were really big in getting their kids the girls to organize and be in it and stuff. They were school teachers. That was Nettie Robertson and them. So
Nice.
so they were really big in it as well. So it's always been a big community event that encompassed everyone,
Yeah, right.
basically.
For the folks at home, Babyface Brass, the brass band is coming from Vancouver.
Good.
So they're
Awesome.
coming back, and Luke Blue Guthrie will finish off the evening at the beer garden.
That's
And
awesome.
also, I just wanted to thank the Event Society because the Cumberland Cup is also under your umbrella for the insurance, so we appreciate that very much. The road hockey tournament in the
Oh,
park in
right,
the summer.
yes. Cumberland, I forgot to put that in here.
Next year.
Okay,
Any other questions?
thank you.
Comments? Thank you so much. Yeah, that was very helpful. We're clarifying a
Everything.
lot.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes. It's very good work. Thanks so much for coming, Marianne.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Can someone move receipt of that delegation?
I'll
please?
move that council receive the delegation from the Cumberland Event Society regarding Cumberland Victoria Day celebrations.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. And all in favor? Thank you. And UROC Pump Track is next. There's a recommendation if nobody has any questions around that.
Okay, I'll move the council refer the request from the United Riders of Cumberland regarding partnering on a pump track project to staff to provide a report to council for more information on the opportunity.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Excellent. Audited financial statements. Hello, Corey. Come on up.
Thank you. I don't think I've cleared a room that fast before.
It's not you.
It's not exciting.
This is the most
you.
exciting part of the evening.
You just don't normally see it because you're on Zoom.
I'm usually, that's true, that's true. I'm usually first and I'm the one exiting. So
That's right.
It's also,
You probably can't
I
see it,
did
but our
get,
viewership spiked
yeah.
at home.
I did get to sit through a couple hours of public hearing on an OCP in another community last
Oh,
week.
wow.
It was enjoyable. Good process, but they take a long time. So thank you for having me here today to talk to you about the audit and the audited financial statements. Before I start, a big thank you to Michelle and Annie and the staff for going through the audit process with us again this year. I'll try to work the technology. Down button. Okay, thanks, Rachel. There we go. All right, so we'll look at some financial statement highlights, talk a little bit about the audit process, and then wrap up with a little bit of back into the numbers, looking at some financial analysis. A reminder that when we're looking at the financial statements that you've got in your package, and as I'm talking through some of the slides here, we're presenting these on what we call a consolidated basis. So the general fund, water, sewer, the capital funds, or reserve. When you get reports from staff throughout the year, they might be breaking out general fund and other things, just diving into some of the details, but we're taking everything all together, kind of unwinding a few of the transfers back and forth, and showing you the overall picture. So starting with the statement of financial position, or the balance sheet, what you can see here is at a really high level in the 2022 year, or at December 31st, actually, I should say, your cash and investment balances have increased to $22.3 million. If we add in the receivables that you also have at the end of the year, your total financial assets are $24.1 million. Debt being carried by the village is $8.5 million, so being paid down during the year. And when we add in debt, payables, you get a total liability number of $17.6 million. If you take that 17 off of the 24 of financial assets, you get what we call the net financial asset position of $6.4 million at the end of 2022. So you can see there's a strengthening there in the financial position. The tangible capital assets, that's the physical, road, water, sewer, water treatment plants, vehicles, have increased from 64.9 to $71.2 million. So we'll see on a future slide some significant capital spending and capital projects that happened throughout 2022. And the accumulated surplus of $77.8 million, I'll get into that in a future slide. Shifting then to the statement of operations or the income statement, you see that the transactions for the year. 2022 total revenues were $19.3 million, up from 9.5 in 2021 and the 9.2 budget. So some significant things happening there because that looks like a really big increase.
We're rich.
and it is. But what it is it's use of grant funding for some of the projects and the capital projects that are happening. And it's also donated assets. So with some of the development that's happening, when a developer finishes the neighborhood or the area, they build road, water, sewer, streetlights, all that type of stuff, and then they transfer it to the village when they're done, and that can generate large revenue amounts because we're recording the donation essentially, and it does go into your capital assets. So that can skew that number a lot. Unfortunately, that's a quirk of the way the accounting standards are and how we show it. But again, a significant increase from the prior year there. On the expenses side, we expect a little bit of increase year over year from 8.1 to 8.6 with inflation, with wage costs moving up and supplies costs. That would be as expected. It's a little bit over budget from the 8.5, but again, as inflation started to take off, it gets harder to keep some of those things under control. And there's also depreciation expense in there in the actual numbers. So an annual surplus on an accounting basis of $10.6 million. But to unwind all of the accounting adjustments and the donated assets and things, we'll look next at the cash flow statement. So here this is a little bit closer to how you're thinking when you're looking at budget, what's actually going to come in and out of the bank accounts during the year. So for 2022, regular operations at the village brought in $4 million. There's $2.7 million of capital spending. $6 million was transferred out of the main bank accounts into investments. Some new debt, net new debt, $554,000, and then debt repayment of $643,000 for a net cash outflow from the main bank accounts of 4.6. However, I want to draw your attention back to that $6 million number. So the main bank account goes down 4.6, but $6 million being transferred into investments to make sure you're earning a good rate of return. As the interest rates started to climb, we all think about debt and mortgages, but you're also earning a better rate of return on some of those investments. The accumulated surplus number at the end of the year of $77.8 million. Most of that is what we call the equity in the tangible capital assets. So that's the book value of those assets minus the debt. That's $62 million. That's not cash. That's just what you can touch and the debt associated with it. There's $12 million set aside in reserves. You can see a healthy increase from 8.6 in the prior year. And the operating fund is carrying about a $2.3 million surplus, very consistent with the prior year. So I'm going to shift gears, talk a little bit about the audit and the audit process. Happy to be providing what we call an unqualified audit opinion or a clean audit opinion. And we're satisfied that the financial statements that you have in front of you are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with public sector accounting standards. We're ready to sign the report. Council approval will be the last step here. We have all the other minor outstanding matters cleared up. This will be the last step tonight. When we're doing our audit, a few things that are important to know. First off, we start by looking at your controls, internal controls, safeguarding of assets, your covering off any risks around the financial reporting processes and around assets and cash. So we look at those controls, how are they designed, how are they implemented, and then we sample transactions throughout the year to get comfort in the numbers that you're seeing in the financial statements. We don't look at every transaction, we just sample items. The materiality that we used this year for the audit is $400,000. This is a very important number for our audit. One, it drives the amount of testing. I'm going to look at every transaction over that amount, a lot of the capital projects and large grants, and then underneath that, I'm going to sample. If we find something that we disagree with staff on the accounting treatment, or we find something that is in the wrong year, something like that, I can't give you a clean audit opinion if it's $400,000 or higher. But if it's below that amount, I can still give you a clean audit opinion. So it also is my line for clean or not clean on an audit opinion. And then the final bullet there, the engagement status, we didn't find anything unusual, any conflict of interest or any illegal or questionable payments. We're not specifically looking for them. We're not looking for fraud or anything like that. But if anything came to our attention during the audit, I would be required to report it back to council. But happy to report that nothing came up in our audit, so it looked good there. Again, a big thank you to management and staff at the village. We do confirm our independence, that we didn't do any other projects or any other work this year that would impair my ability to give you an independent audit opinion. And I'll wrap up by going back into the numbers. So we looked at 2022, comparing it to 2021 and a few things there. The financial analysis on these last few slides looks at the last 5 years. And here we're looking for trends. What's happening with the finances? Is something trending in a concerning way? We start by looking at what we call the sustainability ratio. Here we're looking at kind of a measure of liquidity. This comparing your financial assets, your cash, your receivables to your liabilities. And here the magic number for this ratio is 1. If you're above 1, you've got more cash and receivables than liabilities. It means you've got some money put aside for future projects. If you start dipping below 1, it means you are taxing or raising rates or fees in the future to pay for the past. So for the village, this has been trending upwards. It's currently 1.36, and the last 2 years it had been flat at 1.1. So that's some cash put aside in reserves for some of the projects that you know you've got coming.
Just a question there. What do normal communities, or what would an average be for that kind of ratio?
Great question, thank you, Councillor. between 1 and 2, most communities are working at. That's a little bit of cash put aside, future projects coming up. If you start getting, into the 3, 4, you've got a lot of cash put aside, and there's probably good uses for it. So usually between 1, 2, maybe as high as 2.5. I do have some communities that I work with, they start to dip into the negative, and then we have a different conversation about you're in a what we call a net debt position, and that can be challenging because you've got you've got to find the ways to increase revenues, taxes, and user rates and things like that. That's a great question.
Yep, thank you.
You wouldn't want that number to be too high though, would you? Because then you're using current taxpayers to fund future acquisitions or future project, right?
Potentially it's a balancing act because you do want to be looking to the future and looking, with your long range planning, capital planning, asset management. If you know something's coming up 3 years from now, you probably do want to be putting aside an amount.
Which we are for policing funds and
Exactly.
and things like
Yes.
that.
Yeah. For the change in the change in population would bump your rates there for sure. But yeah, if you are accumulating, I would expect to see somewhere in your 5 to 10 year plan a pretty significant cost coming, right? And usually, for most communities, that is the case. There's things coming. But yeah, this one does sometimes fluctuate depending on what you take on. But my recommendation always is look to that long range plan that staff have been bringing to you and what costs are coming down the line. There's no magic number for how much you have. It's all, when's that big project coming? When is that cost coming? And knowing that, especially if you're looking at capital projects, you don't want to be totally reliant on other levels of government. You can't guarantee that the federal government will have infrastructure grants in 5 years. The flavor of government can change at the federal level pretty quick. So it's knowing that if you're going to look at debt financing or taxes, your own taxes and reserves, you've got to be able to manage that. And then, so moving right into that next idea is we look at what we call flexibility. So this is comparing a rough aging of the infrastructure, the capital assets. We compare the original cost to the depreciated cost, or what's on the books. It's currently about 74.2. It's up a little bit because we had some new assets coming on with the development contributions, and it was around 72% for the last 4 years. So if this number, here it's less about what that number is, but how it's been trending. If it's trending down, 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 that means significant aging of assets and not being able to stay on top of some of the replacement and maintenance that needs to happen. But here you're up a little bit, and at 74%, kind of middle of the pack is the way I would describe it for the communities that I work with on the island. Some are down into the 65. Not too many people are above 76 or 77%. You have to be a very young community to be at that stage. Lanceville maybe is young enough to be at that stage with not as much depreciation there. So thank you for taking the time to listen to the accountant. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the audit process or the financial statements.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just one I was noticing in there, and just for my clarification, the DCC charges are not treated as revenue until you pull them out of the DCC fund, is that?
Correct. That's
Okay,
absolutely right. Yep.
that's-
We stick them on the balance sheet as a liability.
Yeah,
And then when you go to do a project or something and use, if you're going to repair some road, you'll dip into that road DCC.
and that, the 2.5 million that came out of the DCC funds this year, that's going towards the wastewater treatment to finance that? Okay.
Yeah.
Is there more left for more financing of that?
Yeah, not much. Not much. I can get you guys an update for
it's-
your weekly.
I'll probably just have to go and look at at the fund statement. It's there somewhere, yeah.
Yeah,
I can
and that's a
dig
good
it
point. That's another part of that 9 million to 19 million revenue is 2.5 of the DCCs being recognized.
2.5 in DCC funds is
Yeah.
is the community benefits grant part of that as well?
No.
That didn't come until 2023, so the
So
two,
that'll
two and
show
a
up in
half.
this year.
That's right. 2.5 came into the revenue, and then we transferred it out to the wastewater reserve in order to pay
Yeah.
for the
And
wastewater.
so what else made up the rest of that 10 million then?
I think it's 6 million of that is donated assets, 5.9, I believe.
5.4. Yeah.
5.4, thank you. Yeah.
That would be the roads and sewers from Maple and Coal
And
Valley?
Parkland, would Parkland also be in there?
If it came on in 2022, yeah.
Okay, and some parkland.
And you might also have some that had finished in 2021, but if the warranty period
Right.
finished in 2022, then you recognize it in 2022. We always leave that warranty period because in that, theoretically, in that period of time, the developer is required to
Right.
fix anything if it breaks, right, as opposed to the village.
One other number stuck out at me. We had accounts receivable, and then it broke it down into, I'm trying to figure out which page that was on. Accounts receivable, and then it broke it down into taxes owed, et cetera, and then there was an other category that was over $1 million in
Other,
receivables.
oh, on page 32 of 75? Accounts receivable due from federal government, due from provincial
Yeah.
government. That one?
That one. And then other receivables. Who else owes us? Who else do we get money from, and why is there $1 million?
I'll defer to staff for the details there, yeah.
So the other is mostly like things like, the other is mostly things like your utility receivable. You're always going to have about 500,000 over that because your bill comes in at the last minute
Okay.
and then doesn't get paid.
Accounted as taxes, okay.
No, it's just other. And then I would say another bigger one is for other is probably investment interest was a big one of 200 and something thousand that added to that. And yeah, so the utilities was actually over 600,000
Okay.
at the end. So those are the two big ones.
That's
I
the
would
bulk
say.
of it.
Yeah. For the other.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
the
you.
rest is just minor other ones.
So the materiality went up. Is that a percentage of the, like, how is
Yeah.
that, how do you come to that
We
number?
calculate that as 4% of your annual revenues.
Okay.
So because of the big increase year over year, we took out a couple things to keep it down a little bit. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it would have jumped up into
Yeah.
a lot bigger number. And we know that you can have, say, I mean, next year you might come right back down to the $9 or $10 million mark, if depending on their contributed assets and use of the DCCs and things. So we normalize it a little bit to try and not have those up and downs in it. So, but 4% of annual revenue is our benchmark.
Okay. And so year over year, you could adjust that if we
Mhm.
have a, yeah. Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Interesting.
Can I just jump in as well? Is that so that 400 is what the auditor uses for testing, but
Yeah.
and would not give wouldn't give a clean audit over 400, but
Yeah.
staff would never even come close to 400. Like
Yeah.
we would. I just want to
Yeah.
we wouldn't do
It's
like
their
that's
measure,
an
not
important
ours.
number to us too, and we wouldn't even that's not something we wouldn't consider it a clean audit if we were close to $400,000 out.
Yeah, for us, it's an auditor function around the cost benefit of how much work and effort goes in
Exactly.
certain areas. And then on top of that, we focus on certain areas as what we would call risk areas. So we'll spend more time in revenue, and we'll spend more time in deferred revenue, in those areas that need a little bit more scrutiny, using that $400,000 mark to drive the amount of testing. But yeah, if we lowered the materiality, I'm bugging your
Would've been
staff for
very
weeks
busy.
and weeks on
Yeah.
end. So there's a balancing act there of how much time and effort goes into the audit
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Any other questions?
You look good.
Excellent. Thank
Okay,
you so
great.
much,
Thank
Corey.
you very much.
Thank you, Gory.
And there's a recommendation there, Council.
I would like to. Here we go. I would like to move that council receive Corey Vanderhorst, CPA/CA from MNP, to present the auditor's report to council for the year ended December 31st, 2022, and that council approve the Village of Cumberland audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2022.
Thank you. Seconder.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's carried. UBCM letter on behalf of the Ministry of Housing.
Okay. So this is just a quick letter to introduce to, or a quick report to introduce to you a letter that was received by UBCM on behalf of the Minister of Housing, and the ministry is seeking assistance of the municipality for documenting potential land for housing as the province rolls out its refreshed housing strategy. So a big part of that request is for council's information would be the use of a properties and facility report that council could use to look at that strategy and what kind of information you may wish to provide to the Ministry of Housing. And so staff is recommending to council that that you direct staff to report back in a closed session meeting so that we could bring that full report to you and for your decision if you would choose to report back. And the information, I think, is pretty important because it could be used for the province to understand lands that are in different municipalities, or not even just lands, properties that you may be able to, that they may be able to partner with you, or a co-op may be able to partner with you for affordable housing. So it's a really good process, but council can make that decision. Not to participate, and then, or you can direct staff to bring a report back.
Okay, questions?
No, I think it's important to participate, and so we can be on the province's list there.
Yeah,
Agreed.
If they want to come and bring us money to develop land, I don't see
Yep.
that's a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Okay, there's a
For
recommendation there.
affordable housing.
For
Yes.
affordable housing, yes. Only for affordable housing, yeah. There's a
I'd like
recommendation.
to move that council direct staff to report to council in a closed session meeting under section 90 regarding possible municipal lands or facilities available for affordable housing.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Bylaws. 2023 property tax rates bylaw. Annie, welcome.
Hello. All right, so this report is to provide council with the 2023 property tax rate bylaw number 1192, 2023, for consideration of first, second, and third reading. This bylaw is have to be adopted prior to May 15th every year. The bylaw establishes the tax rates for the Village of Cumberland and for other government agencies for which the village levies and collects taxes. As explained in the report, in order to generate the same taxation revenue as included in the adopted financial plan for 2023, a greater tax increase must be considered, increasing from the 6.14% previously discussed to 6.84%. The additional increase is due to a recent assessment appeal processed by BC Assessment for a large property, resulting in an amount of 3.3 million assessed taxable value reclassed from Class 6 to Class 1. This is for property just off Royston Road. And the outcome of the change is a reduction of $25,000 in the overall taxation revenue for 2023 that was presented previously to council, as the rate is much larger for, as the tax rate is much larger for businesses than it is for residential. In order to maintain the required taxation revenue included in the approved financial plan, an additional increase of 0.7% is required for a total increase of 6.84%, which represent approximately $11 more for the average single-family home. And now looking at the tax rate, the table included on page 64 of the agenda, the decreased tax rate reflect the significant increase in the market, significant market increase. The total market value in 2023 assessment for Cumberland properties increased by approximately 15%. And then council may notice that the tax ratio has been increased from 14.67 to 19 for Class 7 managed forest per January 23rd, I believe, council resolution. The tax rate bylaw also includes a taxation rate for the regional and hospital district requisition. The actual CVRD requisition for 2023 is higher than estimated, and mostly estimated by about $64,000, mostly due to a higher increase for the recreation complexes and tax services, while the Vancouver Island Regional Library and the hospital district requisition came in lower than estimated. The combination of those variances explains an overall increase of about $15 for the average single-family property compared to the figures presented at the February Village Hall. The overall estimated impact, including the assessment appeal and increase in actual requisition, represent about $27 for the average single-family properties, for a total estimated increase of $390 in total charges for 2023. At this point, council still has the option to maintain a tax rate increase of 6.14 by giving first reading of the 2023 property tax rate bylaws and directing staff to change Schedule A included in the bylaw with the rates calculated with a 6.14% increase, and also directing staff to amend the 2023-2027 financial plan bylaw to reduce the taxation revenue by $25,000 and include a funding from the General Financial Stabilization Reserve to cover for the shortfall in revenue resulting from the assessment appeal. I'm happy to answer any question now.
Thank you so much. Questions, council?
Just out of curiosity, which property
It's-
changed from a business to a residential?
It's just a portion of the property. It's just off Royston Road. I think it's west of Kentwood Road.
Okay.
Yeah, Roger Cantel.
Just slightly, so what happened was, I guess they had gotten the percentage wrong of what was residential compared to commercial all these years.
I see.
And so then they won an appeal to
Okay.
move it.
Retroactive.
Okay.
Okay, so it wasn't a new build or something else that happened out there okay.
No.
Oh, well, I guess we're lucky we had the money we did get. For all
Well,
these
we
years.
were pretty low where we,
Yeah, I
so
was-
where we were. So, I mean, it's an increase of $33. Our average expected increase per property is only a $33.
27, I think.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
sorry.
total
Seven?
with the
27,
requisition.
11 of which
Right.
is.
Right.
With the
which
others, yeah.
So that's the decision we have is
Yeah.
whether we save $11.
Yeah.
And I should probably add as well, sorry, so we don't have all the numbers from all the taxing authorities, so police is still has to come, school, MFA, BC assessment. So for now, we just have 8 to 10% increase, I believe, for those four authorities. So if that comes in a bit higher, we might end up with a higher increase than budgeted, or if it comes
Right.
lower, same, it would be reduced impact.
Okay, and so would that come to us as an amendment afterwards if we do 3 readings now and then we amend it, or how does that work?
Actually, for those ones, they provide the actual rate per
Okay.
classes, so we don't have to bring that. They have their own bylaw, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, somebody want to move the?
Just actually, I do have one more question. So there's no more appeals yet to come in. That's the final,
I
or
don't
we're
know.
know about those until they are processed.
okay. Is there a drop dead date for the appeals to like a
Um,
cutoff date?
Well, typically they are included in the revised roll,
Yeah.
which we get at the end of March. But those can be processed throughout the year, and they can be also retroactive. So
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad this one wasn't. Okay, so there's a recommendation there.
I'll move the council to give first, second, and third reading to 2023 property tax rates bylaw number 1192, 2023.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yeah.
And that's carried.
Thank you, Annie.
And that's it. Notices, okay, questions? We've got no audience, so there's that. Let's hope somebody wrote something.
Hopefully somebody's writing some music.
Right?
We just keep saying it every time.
Maybe if we just start singing, someone will write us music to stop
Yeah,
us from
that's
singing,
Probably a good tack.
right?
But I think you guys do want a campaign on getting people to start watching you.
Yeah, so maybe don't sing. Is that what you're saying?
Wait, what?
Maybe don't.
Hey, what? Oh, it's a good.
Do we want watching or no?
I think so.
We want you to watch.
I think she's just recommending no singing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see. Well,
Maybe some, just.
Not all of us are professional
I've been a
singers.
semi-professional singer
Yeah,
before.
you can sing.
Okay, Sean, you can.
Summertime.
Nobody saw me at karaoke, but we killed it with
People
Step
see
and
you.
Robin.
Nothing?
Killed.
Okay, no questions. So we need a motion to adjourn then.
Oh, don't we have a
Sorry,
closed
move to
portion?
I'll move
close.
the council
Yeah.
close the meeting to public pursuant to section 90 of the community charter to consider the acquisition, disposition, expropriation of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. Information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you, Counselor. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Excellent.